Hi guys! So I just want to start this video by saying thank you. I really appreciate you clicking on this video and choosing to watch something that could potentially help you deal with this issue of racism that often goes untalked about. I'm really passionate about making a difference in racism, especially in the lives of students. So thank you for watching, and I hope you learned something. So I spent the last 15 weeks volunteering in a classroom here in Greeley, Colorado, and really just tried to engage with students and teachers and the faculty there, and tried to pay a lot of attention to the ways that I could see racism happening, or if there was bias going on. And I had a lot of discussion with teachers, and then just really engaged with students and tried to get a good grasp of what I could see happening, and things that I think can make a difference. So throughout that time, I also had a discussion with numerous teachers from that school, and they were really helpful in revealing to me the way that they are taught to teach and the way that they are taught to combat racism in their classroom. And they were really open and helpful to me. So I just want to share with everyone here a couple of things that I learned that may be really helpful to implement in your classroom or in your school, just to help all of your students feel like they're more represented, and that you create a more equal and supportive environment of all of your students. So I'm going to share with you 4 things that I learned that I think are really important. So number 1 is to be aware of your own bias. I know it can be a really tough thing to admit, but whether we like it or not, our experiences, our culture, the way that we were raised, the people that surrounded us really shapes our own bias. And it's really important to reflect on that and see areas where you may unintentionally be, treating a student a little bit differently based on lots of different things, including the color of their skin. The important thing with this is that studies show that students reach the expectations that teachers set for them. So it's really important that in recognizing your own bias, you can quickly combat it with setting those expectations really high for all of your students and making sure that you allow them to succeed and not having those expectations a little bit lower unintentionally or not for specific students. Number 2 would be that standardized testing is built upon a white middle-class student's experiences. So this was something that the teachers that I worked with were really passionate about sharing. They all felt like it was tough to have students see themselves in standardized testing, and that adds to how challenging that it can be for students of color. So that's something really important to recognize. And when you're writing your own tests for your classroom or for your school, really engage with the teachers that are on your team and in your school, and try and write tests that are representative of all the students in your classroom so that they can see themselves, in those word problems or in the experiences that are shared in that test, and your students may be more successful on those exams. Number 3 is to study your curriculum. Similar to number 2, most curriculum are based off of the white student's experience, and that can make it really challenging for students to engage with the material when they're not feeling like they are represented or anything like that. They tend to not do as well and not give as much effort. So I think it's really important to pay attention to your classroom because every school is different. You're going to have a different racial and economic background for all of your students. So it's really important to get to know your classroom and then try to adapt your curriculum to be representative of that. And I believe that will really help students succeed. Number 5, and I think this is the most important thing that I have learned throughout this whole experience, is to don't be afraid to talk about it. Racism thrives on silence. When people see it or partake in it or have, those biases and do not talk about it and they just keep going through the day-to-day and don't do anything to change it, that really is helping it succeed and not making any changes. So the biggest thing is just being open to having discussions about it. I think in the classroom, it's particularly important to discuss with your peers, your teachers that are on your team, teachers that are in your school, your principal. Really have discussions about the ways that you may or may not be seeing racism in your school or how you're seeing it in the materials you're working with, so that you guys can come together and find ways to make a difference in your school. Lastly, I just want to say that this whole experience has been really eye-opening to me, and I would just encourage everyone to kind of change the lens that you are looking through and start paying attention to the way that students of color may be experiencing education differently than we assume them to be. So again, thanks for watching, and I hope you learned something. Have a good day.